All right, so hello everyone on YouTube, hello everyone on Facebook, hello everyone listening on the podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's a little bit low down the camera view, so let me see if I can sort that first. Welcome to Monday. Welcome to the Startup Business Q&A. If this is your first time visiting, this is episode 73. Where the hell have you been? There we are, you can see properly. I thought I'd just start. I usually wait till exactly 1 on the dot, but you know, why not? Just get on with it. So, it's a great day because there's such an interesting couple of weeks ahead. And what it is I think today's, what is it, the 11th? I can't remember the date. It's been a crazy weekend. It's the 11th of December. Now, next week, I'm doing a full week with clients in London, and thereafter it will be, or rather this week, sorry, and then thereafter it will be less people I'm seeing as they close up for Christmas. And I say they because I'm not necessarily closing down or slowing up what I'm doing over Christmas. It's a case of just changing what I'm doing. It's very exciting when things like that happen because what it is new time is being released. So it's something to check out in your own world. This idea, hello Venu from Jamaica, thanks for joining in. This idea is like whenever you free up some free time, is say to yourself, right, how can I redirect myself in that period? At the end of November, I finished a large project. This is why I was kind of, I was really working my face off to cover everything in terms of content, production, and everything like that as well. But November was a huge month for a client with me, and at the end of that month, we freed up the whole of Fridays. So that changed things quite a lot. And suddenly I was in a place where it was like, wow, I've got a whole day. And in terms of a working week, let alone the weekends, that's 20% gift. So it's an amazing feeling thinking, right, after this week, there'll be significantly less things required of me. So let's see how I work, around those. The fact that I don't have the clients, but I do have the the people there. So we've got some interesting questions that's come through today. Thank you everyone who has sent them through. But I just wanted you to think about this as you move towards Christmas. How are you going to use the time? It's important to make sure you spend time with family or whatever if you want to have balance, but at the same time it's tempting to take your foot off the gas. Why would you want to? If you're doing the right thing, make sure you're enjoying yourself, sure, but also why don't you make the most of this extra bit of time to get ahead of most people? That's what I like to think about. Anyway, everyone's here. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear okay. We had a bit of a connection issue a bit earlier today with the live stream, but it should be fine. Looks like YouTube's working fine as well. This is going to be a very short one today. I say very short, it'll probably be half hour still. Because I've got a meeting to go to at 2, which is normally when I finish, so we need to be out the door quite soon. So I've got a couple of questions. Anyone here who wishes to ask a question about startup business, fire away in the comments. If you're thinking about anything right now or anything is potentially a great question that you want other people to be aware of, let me know, and and I'll answer that as well. But let's start here. So we've got one from Daniel Nunes. So Daniel, I wanted to shout out everyone who's listening every week, and Daniel's one of those guys who turns up every week, so I'm really proud of that. Thank you so much. And your question is, do you have any suggestions on rebuilding momentum after getting a couple of major L's? I presume L's mean losses, right? And I don't know if it is or not, but that's what I think it is, so I'm going to work on the basis it is. Okay, so when you get major losses, so big setbacks, that might be capital, because maybe you'd been really going for it with I don't know, Instagram ads, and then you realize that actually you've done it quite slightly wrong, you've lost a load of money, and that's a big setback. Or maybe you lost your biggest client, or maybe you've lost I've had this happen once before, where you don't just lose one, but maybe you lose 3 big clients just because things happen like that. Then it puts you in a really scary place sometimes when you've got a sense of like, I've lost my momentum, how do I get myself back on track again? There's a couple of things that work for me, and I'd be interested in all of your opinions here, how you regain momentum after some losses. The problem, look, the good thing is that we're humans, so we can leverage our emotional state and a sense of momentum and really get the most from us. But simultaneously, the problem is also that sometimes you have problems. Sometimes you have real problems. And what that is that if you're emotional, as a human being, it means that can affect your ability to get momentum again. Momentum, as far as I see it, is actually a habit. It comes from taking an action, then more action, and then more action, and then more action, and so on. And the idea is the more and more actions you're taking, the more and more you get into the habit of taking action, and as a result, that's how you have momentum. So where I want to be again is having a sense of moving forward and kind of progress. Now, the way you need to do that is to say, right, in order to take action, I need to get on and start taking action. But we've got one big problem here. So this is us tackling the issue. The big problem, Daniel, is that you've got motivation is potentially an issue. Now, those of you who follow my content will know that my hack on this is to really focus on the action and set aside the emotion as much as you can. And the way to do that is to just take an action, like to jump on something. So here's your solution, really. In terms of getting momentum back, what you need to be doing is thinking, I need to take some action. If I can take some action, it will mitigate the chances of me spending time thinking and dwelling and being emotional. So taking action is the way to get that habit forming again and start the process of building momentum. You will feel like there's momentum if you're being successful as well. Excuse me. And in order to get there, you need to have some momentum in your actions, because that will breed results and opportunities, and that's how you feel like you got momentum again. It is crazy how momentum is often just a state of mind and a perspective and kind of an emotional feeling, but still we have to work with the fact we're humans, right? So in order to get these actions going, the difficulty is when you've had a load of major losses, you are in a place where you're probably feeling a bit beat up. And so having the momentum, or rather the motivation to dive in again, is quite a hard thing to do. That's the point. That's how we're built. We're feeling a bit dejected. No matter how strong you are, it can affect you. So the key is to have some very small actions that will get you going again. Where can you get some small wins? It might be for you that you get small wins where you do something like, the kind of post you could put on Facebook that's going to get you loads of love and attention, make you feel a bit better. Post a win. If you don't have a win, then post a throwback. So like from a year ago, can't believe I won this thing 3 months ago, or can't believe it was a year since this great thing happened. Then you'll get a load of love from it, and it might feel you a bit better, make you feel a bit better, for instance. But you do possibly need, for some of you, to be in that kind of state of mind where you're feeling a bit better about things. My suggestion is this: when you are winning, you set yourself up for when things go wrong. What I mean by this is when things are going well, it's worth writing a little list or record a video for yourself or something of the minor actions that can affect you positively and have a positive impact on your momentum, things that can start the wheels spinning again. Write those down or record them so you know what they are. Then when you're having a bad day, you can refer to that and say, my successful self has said that these little things can get me going again. Let's just focus on that. And what you're doing is you're becoming, you're kind of associating yourself with your successful self who wrote this stuff out. And that successful self is like, look, man, these things have worked, and you'll buy into it more because it was written from a place of winning, of momentum. Okay, so you've got those things, and it might be really small things like these 5 things a day were things that help me win. And it's called bottling it. And there's different meanings of that term, but this means bottling, as in putting in a bottle, if you like, the feeling of things going really well, which is why I've suggested the video. So kind of break this down to practical steps. When you're doing well, ideally you want to record a video of yourself saying, hey, this is a video for when I'm not doing great, if I've had some loss or sense of momentum being lost. Right now, here's how I'm feeling. Right now, here's why I feel I'm feeling that way. And if I'm feeling down, I can say without a shadow of doubt, these are 3 or 4 or 5 things that are simple wins that will help me get going again. Got it? So if you can do that, you can then tap into that video. I remember doing this some very dark days many years ago when I was working 9 to 5 and really pushed. So I would be sleeping on friends' sofas or getting a hotel so I could be near the office and really pushing myself. And I would record a video, but I also had written out, I don't think I've saved it actually, but written out just kind of how I was feeling about it. And it was like, you know, you're feeling a bit beat up at the moment, but here are the things that helped you win or helped you get where you are. And these are things you need to keep doing. What it does is it gives you, this is the next part, it gives you practical steps to now focus on to move yourself to a more successful place, to build momentum. And those practical steps aren't based on you thinking, what are my practical steps when you're feeling dejected? It's when you are feeling great. And so they're associated with you winning, so you will believe they help you winning, so they tend to actually help you win, okay, and get that momentum back. And that's how those actions start coming back. But the key is you don't want to be thinking, you want to be acting, and that's how you're going to regain the momentum. Now, I've focused on small steps because it's easier to take little steps before you take larger steps. It might be that you have little steps or little actions that you can constantly replicate, so you're getting wins across the day. I don't know what that might be. It could be anything. It could be that you have one of your product line that is very simple to sell, and you just go and bang out 500 calls in the next 3 days, and you know, sell a load of that, so you start feeling wins. Like I said earlier, it might be a post on social media that makes you feel better. It could be something else, but whatever it is, things that will make you feel better, but are action taking. They need to be simple, convenient actions that require there's little friction in doing them, because if they're difficult or complex or require any kind of willpower, you're not going to be in the mood to want to bother doing them, right? Because you're feeling a bit down. So that's the thing to bear in mind. So set yourself up when you're doing all right, but when you're not going to do well. If you're coming at this from a perspective of, but I'm not doing all right, so I can't have this, you know, I can't kind of set this stuff up. What you need to be thinking is like, well, how do I take small steps now? What small actions can get me back in the direction I want to be going? The smallest action, take that. If in one day you make one tiny action, that is still progress. You've got to understand that, you know, sometimes it takes time to get where you need to get. If there's some urgency, like, you know, the roof's going to cave in because I can't afford to pay for it to get fixed unless I make money today, well, you'll probably got the motivation right there to actually work on your thing. But otherwise, if you're feeling a bit kind of meh about things, well, do you know what? Sometimes it's worth saying, let's work with what we've got. Right now, I'm in a really bad place. Right now, I can't put down the video games. Right now, I can't stop watching Netflix. Right now, I can't stop procrastinating and finding anything in the world to do except this work. What you want to do is find the smallest action you can take that's helping your business, but also is very accessible, even if it's fun. That's the kind of action you're after. Maybe you leave your office and or your place of work and you go do something completely different, something creative for the business. Go design something, go write something, go blog, go tweet, go on Facebook Live, for instance. Just something to help your case or your cause move forward, and then you'll feel like you're on track. All it really is you now spending some time with your work as opposed to spending time with other things, and that will get the action going again. I really hope that helps, Daniel. These are the things that have worked for me in the past, but momentum is born out of habit, and habit comes from constantly doing these little actions every day. So people look at uber successful or uber productive people and think, wow, how do they, like, it's amazing how productive they are. What it is that they're used to being that productive. It's like when you get, I remember when I started getting up out of bed a little later, because I wasn't getting up at 4:45 in the morning to get a train into London to go and work. It was like, I'm really, on the days I had to get up early for whatever reason, it was like, this is really a struggle. It's not a struggle when you do it every day. It's tiring, but you get used to it. And it's about getting used to things, and that's where these actions will take you. So hope that makes sense. That's what works for me. I'd love to hear what you have worked for you in terms of that kind of thing as well. The thumbs up if that makes sense. But your kind of hacks for getting momentum back will be very valuable. Often this is one of the big problems or reasons why people slow down and don't get their businesses moving as they should. It's important to look at it that way. If you have a question right now, and to put it into the comments, and I'll answer it here. If you're, as I said, always, every time, you know, if you put it in retrospectively because you're not watching this live, and I'll still get your question, no problem at all. But let's look at the next one. And thank you very much, Daniel, for sending that one over. So next one's from Andrew Hall, which is quite it's 3 questions here, but He said, Richard, how do you put together a marketing budget for a SaaS pre-revenue business? So SaaS is SaaS, which stands for software as a service. So if you think about, if you're in sales, you think about the likes of Salesforce and things like that. It's software used as a service. So this is often owned by someone else. You kind of buy into it, or you have a license to use it, for instance. And pre-revenue business, so it sounds like you've got a business, Andrew, that isn't generating revenue yet, and it's a SaaS platform. Okay, how do you target and set a price for influencer marketing? Primarily when talking to an investor saying we're going to spend X dollars on influencer marketing with these people. So this is essential you understand this. When it comes to setting a marketing budget, and when it comes to setting influencer marketing budgets, for instance, there are lots of variables here. What we've got to understand as well is your product. So let's make this a bit more global, because this is a really good question, Andrew, and I think this is something that can be useful for everyone. Setting a marketing budget depends on the actual outcomes you have in mind. So what are you trying to achieve? That depends on really the sales process that you have for your product. Hear me out. This is why it's important. If you have you need to understand the type of product you have. Some products are saleable, as in they can be sold through an advert on Facebook. What I mean by that, and I've bought from them, so what I mean by that is they are sufficient type of product that it is maybe a low ticket one, it is accessible, it is simple enough that you buy it from an advert you receive. So I, in the past, for instance, have bought some software, in fact, it's similar to this, so software that came through on an advert. The time was perfect, it was right for me. I clicked on the ad, great funnel landing page, it was exactly what I was after. And so because they happened to be in front of me when I needed it, I went ahead and bought it. So that's the one type of product. Some products you can buy, can be sold rather, straight from an advert. Now, there are other types of products that require a little bit more warming up, right? Maybe they require warming up through more ads or more value, or they require more warming up in the sense that they are leads that you're then going to phone call, okay? So it might be that your marketing budget isn't for adverts to close people. It might be that your marketing budget, Andrew, is in fact for ads to generate leads. Because those leads then were going to be, maybe it goes through to a survey, and then there's a phone call that they can have for free, and one of your guys will then call them up to actually sell them the SaaS product. Now, if that's the case, what you're looking for, of course, is lead gen for your marketing budget. So you need to understand that. It might be something different. It could be something like the advert leads through to a free trial, so something in the middle, rather than a discovery call to discuss if they're going to buy your product, or an out-and-out sale. Somewhere in the middle might be an ads or ad set leading through to someone taking a trial of your product, and then it becomes a lead for you to close later on. Whatever it is, you need to understand the likely sales process to buying your product. If I was a coach, for instance, I likely would need a number of ads, or I do different types of marketing to build the value around me and to warm people up over a number of different touch points. Maybe there's a downloadable document, webinar, and all this kind of stuff. All this kind of thing. There's lots of different touch points to get me there. Alternatively, it might be if I'm selling something really simple, like those fidget spinners you've probably seen. They're the kind of things you might sell just on one pot with the ad, even if it's to cold traffic. If you do it right with a great video, you get just generating sales through those ads. So you've got to understand your product, you've got to understand that process, or at least what you think it's likely to be. My guess is a software as a service business, Andrew, you're going to need to warm people up a bit, maybe testimonials and case studies as your ads, and of course we talked about sharing with influencers. And I think it's important to understand, if we look at the influencer side, it's important to understand that I feel influencer marketing as we know it in the digital social media sense right now, because it's always been there. You've always had, people doing product placement or advertising brands who are you know, film stars. I'm sure Marilyn Monroe did something with Coca-Cola at one point. But the point is that digitally speaking, on social media, it's slightly undefined. There's no sense really of, because there's so many variables, you see, there's no real sense of here's how much it normally costs or here's the industry average. So I suppose the best way to describe this is, for every influencer out there that is totally underpriced, there'll be one who totally overprices them. And that could be a minefield if you're new to this space and you're going to try, you've got budget to spend, or you're going to you know, put in a marketing plan for investors, the budget you intend to spend on influencers, because you don't know how much they are actually expecting to get paid. And what it comes down to is how good the influencer thinks he is or knows about his space. When I first did consulting, very, very first, way back, like this is like 7 years ago or so, I charged, I think it was £300 for a day, and that was it. And I remember, and that was going to London, all right? So getting the train in, then food for the day, doing the whole day's work, then getting home for £300 in a day. And it was like, thinking now about that, it was like, well, what was I doing? But I was driven, that price was driven not by knowledge of how much I should charge. It was, I don't know, just think about it. I don't know, 300 quid. And I just thought, that's more than, you know, most people might get paid as an average wage. That will cover me getting in. And I just didn't know what I was doing. So I just picked a number. Then later on, it was like, well, let's test this. Then it was 500 quid. Then it was £1,000 for a day. And then you're like, hang on, people are still paying it. And so maybe it could be more. And so you don't know unless you feel your way as an influencer. And so you don't know where on that scale you're going to get the person you're reaching out to. Also, there's other variables, because an influencer who target, for instance, if I target startup businesses and people who do sales and things like that and marketing, there'll be other people who do the same as me. And they might be just as good and things like that, or have the same kind of level of content, but some people might have more followers or more active followers. And of course you could charge premium for that. Or the person you're reaching out to just might not feel that great about themselves and think that they can be priced, should be priced a bit lower. Or even more variables, if just for fun, that person might be crap at negotiating and not hold their price. I'm fairly good at holding my prices, and other people, like, they'll be beaten down, no problem. They'll take any work. Do you see what I mean? So it's very hard to know. A good way of doing it is to speak to a lot of them and engage with a lot of them. So what I'm saying is, get out there. I'm talking about 50, Andrew. So engage with, say, 50 influencers who might be able to help you in your space. First, you need to check and see if they'll actually take money to market themselves. Under very, very strict parameters, I will take money to do influencer marketing, but not always. I've had so many instances where people are throwing money at me to completely compromise my brand, you know, and it would just be spamming all of you lot. And if I did that, it would be like, who's this guy? And then you lose your reputation for the sake of winning some money. It's just not worth it. And so you need to get in touch with at least 50, I think, who could, who are agreeable to the idea of doing some influencer marketing with you. They're in your space and they're willing to look at it. Then you got to look at the price spread. Then work out yourself, you know, not how much do I want to spend, because I know you're going to investors, but, you know, who have I got here? I've got these guys at one end who are fairly cheap, these guys at the other end who are really expensive. So there'll be some gems in there, some who are just priced themselves too low but have amazing reach. One thing's for sure, you're doing the right thing by looking at influencer marketing. It's very penetrative right now, and I should think moving forward, you've got everyone, let's just call it everyone, holding their mobile phones in their hand. The first thing they do these days is they don't roll over. When people wake up, they don't roll over to kiss their partner good morning. They roll the other way and pick up their phone and check what notifications they got. And when they're scrolling through Facebook, that's where your ad is, or that's where the influencer marketing post is on Instagram, the person they follow. So that's essential to tap into. But I think you just do need to do research. There's no algorithm here. It is a case of, right, let's get in touch with 50 or so. Who do I engage with? Who you know, who's giving me good terms? There are people who will charge you 40 grand per post on Instagram. There are people who charge you far less, and sometimes the results are comparable. But you need to map this out a bit. I think that it's worth speaking to influencers about how, especially those who have done this a few times, speaking to them about how they would market this and how they have done it in the past, because there you've got people who have that experience. That might be worth doing rather than you calling the shots if you feel like you're feeling in the dark a bit. So hopefully that helps a bit. But targeting and setting a price for influencer marketing is tremendously difficult if you're going to try and write it out in a sentence. Okay, far better is to say, right, I'm going to target, you know, and you should be using your hashtags for this and looking at followers of a certain size, things like that. There are plenty of tools to help you do it. Look at the type of influencers who could reach out to the right kind of people. So you may be, for a software as a service, I don't exactly know what type it is or what it's focused on, but look for their kind of target demographic and who are they following, who's trending, who comes top of Instagram posts, who comes top in Facebook, and then start engaging with them. I would lead with, I'm keen on working with you as an influencer marketer. With, you know, we're looking at people who might be able to help us in this space, and they'll be able to say, they'll either say, no, we don't, I'm not monetizing this, or yeah, that's fine, and then you can get into a discussion. I wouldn't be flashing around any budget or suggesting any numbers. I would always try and get into a connection first to have a sense of if that person knows what they're doing. Be very careful as well about people who talk about their network and you know, all the people they have are able to engage with. It's essential you understand, if you're reaching out to an influencer, there are people who run like a group of websites, and they do it as a fully commercial vehicle. So their job is constantly pumping out posts to as many people as possible and getting money for doing that. There are other people who operate in the space as and as a kind of, I suppose, as someone who understands the space, is a value producer who provides a service themselves, and in addition they do marketing. I would opt for the second set. First set may well have good penetration and understand what they're doing, but the second set probably has better engagement and better trust from the following. So those who genuinely operate in that space. If I give you a simple example of this, there are people who will focus on building accounts. Say, if we take Instagram, building accounts for startup businesses and entrepreneurs, and they're building accounts purely to monetize them as influencer marketers to generate income that way. Then you've got people, an extreme example would be someone like Richard Branson, for instance. And if he talks about a product in one of his posts, he's going to get far more engagement probably because he has a brand around him that's much more trusted. The followers have really bought into him far more probably than the people who are doing it purely as a commercial vehicle. So be careful and look at that distinction there as well. I think it's worth bearing in mind. But ask people who've done this kind of campaign before. And it's, you know, if you've got any kind of following, it might be worth you jumping online and saying, is anyone out there, an influencer who can help with this? But the people who jump in all the time are like, me too, me too, me too, I do it. Watch out for them, because they're often maybe the ones who aren't established with roots in that space, but maybe using it a bit more just to leverage getting your money out of things. So be careful with that. If I look, for instance, at a recent campaign that will be going out soon, with Peugeot, the car manufacturer from France, and Europcar, that's a good example of a business who came to me who said, rather than you being someone who kind of pumps out content specifically with a view to monetizing it as an influencer, instead, we understand that you are a value producer for people in your space, and that's what we're trying to target instead, because your engagement is higher than it otherwise would be. So just think on that. Just look at those nuances there. That makes a big difference. Because of time, we're going to draw it to a close here, unless there's any questions right now. Thumbs up if that made sense. Hopefully it helped, and thanks very much, Andrew. I think that it's difficult the answer to that question because there's a lot of variation in it, and it's hard to know exactly how to play this. But those are searching questions. I wouldn't be going near an investor unless I'd asked those questions and got out into the trenches and spoken to a lot of influencers to understand that bit more. But first job is understand your product and what it would require to sell it. Why do you want an influencer? Is it just to get people aware of you? Fine. What's the process after that? So what are you trying to achieve with it? If you're going to have an influencer work with you, maybe to bring them in and then put them onto an advert, so the product placement, if you like, of this kind of celebrity, putting those out into your adverts. What are you going to do next? How are you going to retarget the people who saw the ad, who engaged with it, and so on as well? Think about that whole process, and that should help a bit. But as to how much should you spend as much as it takes to get the result you want. But then again, ask the question, what is the outcome we're after here? It's interesting, just as an aside, when people ask me things like, how much should I spend on Facebook marketing? It's like the answer is as much as you possibly can to get the outcome you're after. When you're testing, it's $5 a day tops. Just drop a tiny bit of money in. You're just testing on all the ads to see what one works. This one's spiking, it's trending, it's doing well, it's going viral. Now I'll throw a load of money on it, but the others, then I'll kill them all off, you see. So, it's about backing horses, but you don't know which one's going to be the best. So you need to have this sense of it's an experimentation game. The industry leaders at Facebook ads, those who are dropping $1 million budgets every day, they still experiment with all their ads because you never quite know, because you're dealing with human beings and psychology. There's a lot of variation there. So you need to understand that if you're saying, right, our budget is $100 a day, it might be that that's fine, or it might be that you get a bit stuck with it. And I think that you need to have a credit line that's going to be fairly robust. But again, it depends who you're targeting. When I did marketing years ago for a local yoga school that needed 12 people to be completely maxed out at capacity, I ended up getting 60 people register inside a month with it. It was like, but I still only spent I think I spent like 50 quid on ads that, in about 6 weeks ahead of it. I didn't spend that much at all. So I didn't need £1,000 budget. In fact, I needed to be very tight and the process very, very short, because otherwise they're spending money that would otherwise be a profit from a small group. Whereas if you're software as a service, if you're the next Salesforce or Bullhorn or something like that, Andrew, you're going to need a bit more budget for it, but maybe starting the niche and then building from there. Who knows? So lots of variation. I hope that helps getting the juices flowing at least. So if this has been helpful, thanks so much for joining in, and give me a thumbs up. Those of you on YouTube, I'd love to hear from you as well. If you have any questions or comments, having watched this retrospectively, not live, ping them in there on SoundCloud or here, put in a question and I'll happily answer it. But otherwise, so many of you jumping in to watch this. I'm really grateful. I'm sorry to have to go early because I've got a meeting, but have a massive week. Enjoy yourself. And thanks so much to Andrew and Daniel for those great questions. All the best. Have a great Monday.